For the Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors, it is Wednesday, August 18th, and it's 6:03 p.m. Before we move on to the agenda, I'd just like to give Leanne a couple minutes to introduce us to where we are.
Yes, thank you, Hilda. Hello, everyone. I'm Leanne Wright, the director of the Northwest Career Technical Center. You are sitting in the Building Trades program. We thought it would be a good idea to have it here in Building Trades because we imagined having this door open with a nice breeze come through. But what we didn't plan on was that the sunset will happen right there and you will all be blinded. So we're going to keep the door down until the sun sets, and then we can open it up for some air and for people to come and go. And then just for housekeeping purposes, there's 2 bathrooms. One in the back there, and then the lockers there. So 2 different bathrooms. Thank you for being here.
And if we're here after sunset, we need to talk.
Okay.
All right. Next item is agenda review. I have one minor change I'd like to make, and that is to move what is currently 8B to 6A, Principal's Voices in Service Impressions, and then call what is 6A, 6B as SRO committee recommendations. And that's it. Any issues with the agenda? I have a motion to approve the agenda as modified. Al? Grant? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Katie. Any discussion? All in favor of the modified agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7.5 to 7.5, unanimously with 7.5 votes, right? Or is it?
6.5.
No, Nina's gone.
Al 7.
7.5. 7.5, I believe.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, and Nina's out tonight. She won't be here for a family situation. Okay, next item is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. We have a couple over there. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I seem to have a spot.
I'm in the spot. Okay, next item on the agenda is visitors. I see a few here, and also we have some on the Zoom. Our usual protocol, 2 minutes per topic. So if you're here for more than one topic, you can speak 2 minutes on each topic. We'd like to have you, if you're in the rooms, you have to sign in over here. Please state your name before you speak, and then we'll call on you on the Zoom. Let's do the people in the room first, and then we'll go to the Zoom. So,
Madam Chair, just a point of order, could they also state the community that they're from?
sure. We have a request to state the community that you're from additionally, so your name and the community you're from. Thank you. Any objections to that? Okay. All right. So, members of the audience, who wants to speak? Please. Sure.
Is this connected?
Is it live? Yeah.
In the past year, you have heard and read about
We know who you are, but can you say?
Dr. Jennifer Williamson.
Thank you.
In the past year, you have heard and read about actual harm that has befallen students of Maple Run schools by the SROs. For those of you who continue to defend the SRO program, the only arguments I've heard is that there are kids who are not harmed, or that kids are fearful that they will be harmed without a police presence. However, actual students are actually being harmed. We should all be absolutely horrified that this is occurring in our district. From an organization that has had no oversight, cannot show any demonstrable facts of usefulness, only harm, costs more than any other school district in the entire state, and has been funded inappropriately with Medicaid funds meant to improve the well-being of all students. I still cannot fathom knowing all of these details and still choosing to willfully harm our students by keeping SROs in our schools. I cannot imagine being a parent and not being morally outraged that this program is still being defended in any way. I have heard numerous times the contempt of board members as they refer to us as the vocal minorities, or the completely disinterested population of Franklin County as the silent majority. But the people who have spoken up repeatedly are those who identify with groups who are most likely to be harmed. Disabled people, like my son and myself, are 3 times more likely to experience negative interactions with SROs. Out in the world, 33 to 50% of people murdered by police are disabled. Please remove SROs from our schools. Please consider a liaison program in which no officer spends time at the schools except under specific requests for safety concerns. Please consider the safety and well-being of all children, especially those who are BIPOC, LGBTQIA, and disabled. Their lives depend on it. I also want to thank you immensely for having masks in schools with the Delta outbreak. We know that this is a pandemic changer because it is affecting all the people who are unvaccinated. And we have 2 schools of completely 100% unvaccinated kids, and we need to do it for their safety. So I'm very happy that we are doing this. I would like for you all to consider as well opening up the remote option for kids who are immunocompromised so that they can stay at home and get their schooling safely. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve LaRosa. Actually, it is good to see you all tonight. I'll take my mask off. Is it okay to take a mask off for purposes of speaking?
Well, you really shouldn't.
I won't then. That's fine. Okay. And with all due respect, Peter, but as a unified district, I don't think anyone needs to know what community I'm from or anyone. And also, I would respectfully ask the board to please reconsider its decision to limit time allotted to the public testimony tonight. I understand you don't have to grant this, but I remind everyone here that the board policy and precedent would allow for such consideration. As an example, that during the transcript and proficiency-based grading concerns that arose in the fall of 2019, the board, many of you, along with me, were there at the time, did not set a time limit on public testimony. Many people spoke upwards of 4 to 6 minutes. One person even spoke uninterrupted for 14 minutes. Some addressed the board multiple times. The total time taken for public testimony at one of these meetings lasted over 1 hour and 40 minutes. Now, given the time-sensitive nature of transcripts and college admissions, it certainly made sense at that time to grant such latitude, and it was certainly helpful to the district to hear, without limit, the concerns and suggestions of our students and parents that were impacted by that situation. I would only ask this board to please see the SRO issue as no less urgent, and allow those assembled here the time necessary to fully convey their concerns and suggestions. Is it possible? It's a direct question. I know I'm not supposed to ask, but there it is.
Joanna, you have a seat right there.
Sorry, thank you.
I'm just wondering whether the board would allow that consideration. It's been done in the past. There's precedent. I wish that you would see this issue as no less urgent as the transcript issue. There's not that many people here tonight. I know you'd like to get home before midnight, but really, you're going to vote tonight, right?
Probably yes, but so far 2 minutes has not been a problem. People have stuck with it, and I have not cut people off in the middle of a sentence or even in the middle of a paragraph. So I'm trying to, allow for some grace.
I do appreciate that, but you've been getting 2 minute sound bites.
This is not warned on the agenda. This is not a topic
You're
that
right.
we're supposed to be discussing.
You're right, thank you.
All right, I thought I would try. I'm disappointed. So, with that in mind, my following statement, please consider as 2 separate topics. It'll last about 4 minutes. Just over a year ago, the SRO issue came before this board. Since that time, the district has conducted surveys, taken public testimony, as well as impaneled an independent study committee to examine the issue. And after all this time, testimony and fact-finding, what has become abundantly clear to me is that if we choose to continue with a daily uniformed armed presence in our schools, we do so with the full knowledge that it will bring daily and possibly lasting harm to more than a few of our children. They may not be my children, they may not be your children, but they are somebody's children. That alone should give us pause before we accept another year of police in our schools. I realize this is likely a very difficult decision for many of you. I imagine you may be struggling with how best to serve the needs of everyone in our district. As Katie Messier correctly pointed out at the last board meeting, how do we accommodate those who feel comforted in having an SRO presence? This is a hard question and one that deserves an answer. My response would be that, as was pointed out at the last board meeting, this town has state and local police, as well as a sheriff's department, all within a stone's throw of the schools presently staffed by an SRO. This alone should bring a level of comfort to everyone in this room and could be conveyed to our students. Additionally, establishing a police liaison program might also serve to ease the minds of those currently in favor of an SRO, especially if the district were to get behind such a system and promote it. As an aside, I do think it's rather sad that we have normalized for our youngest of minds that the only way that they can feel safe in our schools is to have uniformed and weaponized officers walking the halls daily. I'm ashamed to admit that this notion did not cross my mind when I served on the board. However, I have come to realize, as perhaps some of you have, that this is not the way things have to be, that we can do better. Bill, you mentioned in a Messenger article, just before you became superintendent, how you could not imagine what it must be like to be poor, a woman, have a chemical dependency, or be a person of color. I'm paraphrasing here, but the intent of your comment seemed to be that because you and I cannot know what it's like to be those things, we all needed to be more mindful of those within our community with a voice other than our own. Well, thanks to many of those who have come forward to speak out against an SRO, you and I no longer need to imagine what it's like to walk in those shoes. It has been spelled out to us over and over and over again. Finally, although I no adhere to any organized faith, I'm reminded of my Catholic upbringing in a passage that teaches us, "Whatsoever you do to the least among us, that you do unto me." I urge all of you to please keep in mind those who often have been seen or treated as the least among us. I believe we are all at a crossroads. It's time to find out whether the district's mission statement are mere words or a lived document, something that we continually strive to fulfill and make better. Again, lastly, I believe the board acted wisely last fall when it established the SRO Study Committee. However, ultimately, their findings, along with all the surveys and public testimony, are strictly advisory. The recommendation that you give the administration tonight rests solely with you. Please let them know that you will no longer tolerate the harm that is being done by having armed officers patrolling our hallways. Please remind them that as educators first, they need to always be working towards making our schools a more welcoming home for every child that may walk through our classroom doors. Thank you. Good luck.
I didn't quite see the two different topics there, but I like
There were.
it. Okay.
So we're able to ask for clarification on certain topics for our policy.
You're looking at the policy, I'm thinking.
I am.
Okay, what does it say?
It says, if necessary, the board may ask clarifying questions.
Okay. Do we usually do that during the discussion or at the end? I would recommend doing it at the end. What do we do?
Is it related to a topic that's on the agenda?
It's related to a topic that
Public
just
comment.
came up in public comment. But it's part of the, you name the policy?
It's our public participation at board meetings policy code 8.1.
May I give you a suggestion?
Sure.
I would suggest that if it's about what's just said, then you could ask for clarification so it's not lost. If you wanted to have further, the chair could decide whether to open a comment on if there's not on the agenda. And that's the chair's discretion of running the meeting.
So is your question about something that was just said?
In general, I don't have anything. I think Steve spoke clearly, and I think I caught everything. So I don't have any points of clarification for what you said. But if people are limiting their time to 2 minutes and being brief, I want to make sure that I'm getting all the information. And so if I need something clarified, I assume that clarification will allow other additional time to explain. And And so I could ask a question, and they could, have the time to answer.
I believe you're correct.
Okay. All right. Like I said, I think Steve, everything you said, I think I got, and I appreciate the comment.
Well, I appreciate that.
So I don't have a clarifying question for you, but I'm thinking
What's the code on that?
A21.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks.
Okay, Steve. Okay, who's our next person, please? Ryan.
Thank you, Ryer Erickson, St. Albans City. So I had a couple of topics I want to bring up. First of all, I want to thank you all for, maybe just the superintendent, for instituting a mask mandate by following state guidance. I think we can all see with Delta variant picking up, this is like a #1 rule to have. I think it'll protect kids, and I'm happy to see it at BFA as well, even though I don't have a high school student. I'm happy to see that the district is doing all it can to protect students. Number 2, I really want to talk about equity, and this, of course, relates to the SRO topic, but you guys are talking a lot about equity, and I don't see any movement towards equity. It took you a year to listen to residents who are telling you that SROs are not making schools equitable. A year. You guys have all these words about equity, all this talk about equity, and I don't see any equity in your schools. I don't see it. I've been here, and I know, I'm new. I know, my kids have been in school here for a year. But I'm telling you right now that if it took you a year to just listen, and last meeting was the first time I heard people actually talk about the things I've been talking about as a Black community member. It took you 1 year to listen to the things I said and then to understand them. For me, that is terrifying. That is terrifying to me. This is equity. SROs in school is equity like 101. Police in schools do not provide equitable education for all students, and that's what equity is about. And what I really, really want you to do after the SRO discussion is done, whether you decide to keep them, you decide to go to a liaison program, whether you decide to just get rid of them, I really would love for all of you to just look at your district, look at your policies, your procedures, and just really look at them with the idea of equity in your mind. Because I don't see it. And the SRO committee didn't look at equity. They didn't look at facts. And with all due respect, Superintendent Kimball, you said last meeting that feelings are facts. No. When we brought this up a year ago, we were told very exclusively feelings weren't facts, that we didn't have the facts behind us. And now we've laid out facts for you. We've laid out a plethora of facts. And now it's feelings are facts. So in addition to equity, I would just love for you all to look at the actual numbers, the actual things in place. The numbers, some of the numbers the SRO committee came up with were like not right because they mixed people who preferred not to tell their ethnicity with BIPOC students. So students who didn't prefer to tell their ethnicity and BIPOC students were lumped into one group. And that was the numbers you guys were given. That's not fair. Black students, indigenous students, students of color aren't saying, I don't know what I identify with, or I prefer not to say. That doesn't make sense. So again, please look at the numbers, the very local numbers that the SRO committee came up with that show Black students 6 times as likely to be arrested. Just please look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Anyone else in the room? Oh, hi.
Oh.
Come on up.
Is she? Yeah, come up. Didn't know she was going to speak.
It's just something very simple. I feel that this is an unnecessary use of valuable resources. And it can make a lot of the students at these schools feel uncomfortable to endangered. And I just feel that there are a lot other ways that we could use these resources that don't cause the harm that this is causing. Thank you.
I didn't catch your name.
Gabriela Jordan. Gabriela Jordan.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room care to speak? Okay, we're going to move on to our Zoom call. Someone needs to read the names to me, please.
So we have 4 people. The first one is Mary Johnson.
Mary Johnson, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. And I also want to thank you for the mask, reinstating the mask mandate. I teach at Fairfield and I know that I'm going to feel safer. And I think the students will too, so thank you for that. And so I'm here, I know I was here a couple weeks ago, I'm sorry, I missed the last meeting, just to restate my interest in to reinstate my interest of removing SROs from the school. To me, it's about safety, it's about equity, it's about harm, and or not doing harm. I just finished reading Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow Mass Incarceration and the Age of Colorblindness, an amazing piece of work. And I don't want to create a prison, a pipeline to a prison. And I know that we're in the schools, but things start young. And I don't think color of the skin should set you up for a life of difference from others and a target for possible harm. And I think that for me, it's not about an individual, it's about the system. It's about a system that was created to maintain privilege for some and not for others. And I think resources, Gabriella, amazing. Help where we need it. Mental health help. Trauma help. That's where I want money spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
John Nichols.
John Nichols.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. Wonderful, thank you. My name is John Nichols. I live in St. Albans City. I was the co-chair of the SRO study committee. I was also the author of one of the letters of dissent that were submitted with the findings of the committee. At the risk of a little arrogance, I want to point you once again to my letter of dissent that advocates for a police liaison program because it offers a rare opportunity to have it both ways. We create an equitable environment for students who are harmed or have the potential to be harmed by SROs, and it maintains a relationship between the police department and the school district for matters of safety. There really are so few opportunities that we can have, both needs met, and I think this is one of them. So as you make your decision tonight, I hope you got the chance to read my letter. If you don't, or if you didn't, I would point you towards it tonight as you make your decisions. Thank you so much, and be well.
Thank you.
Shannon Trainer.
Shannon Trainer, please.
Hello everyone, my name is Shannon Trainer. I'm a parent of a Maple Run student in St. Albans Town, and I was also the co-chair for the SRO committee. I'm here tonight to ask the board to follow the recommendations of the SRO committee. To keep the SROs in our schools with modifications, and if that means a liaison program or different modifications. Our committee spent 5 months collecting and reviewing data, interviewing and listening. The committee was very thoughtful on any recommendations that we made, and we wanted to make sure that we would reflect what our schools, staff, parents, and kids needed. Like any program, updates and modifications need to be made to ensure that the program is working for all. We know the presence of SROs in the schools makes some students uncomfortable and in some cases unsafe and cause harm. We also know the presence of the SROs have helped students. Mentoring, helping with bullying, drugs, use, self-harming. Our committee looked at everything and we still felt the SRO committee had value and help with safety and legal issues and mentoring students. With modifications, this program still holds value and should be continued. That is why I'm asking the board to vote yes to keep the SRO program with updates and modifications. We need to take care of our students, staff, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Reese Kelly.
Reese Kelly, please.
Hi everyone, sorry for some background noise. I'm in the New York airport right now. My name is Reese Kelly. I use he, him, his pronouns. And I actually don't appreciate the question of identifying what community I'm in. I want to know what that implies, because I'm pretty sure everyone has shown up here, has a connection to, and is engaged in this school district. So maybe you can ask yourself that and what it means to you. I am queer, I am trans, I am white, I'm an educator, I believe in science, I'm a deeply concerned community member. I also want to acknowledge that there is some helpful information that was done in the SRO study. It was also a satisfaction survey done by individuals who are not social scientists. They conducted a very partially and non-scientific satisfaction survey of community members. That is not the same thing as other data that we have about police officers who have done harm to our community members in the schools. And it makes me curious as to how much money this school district is willing to spend on lawsuits and on insurance coverage for the damage that they have done and will continue to do. Because we have a community here that is going to continue to support the students who are most marginalized and have the most potential to be harmed by this program. I'm going to restate Jen's statement because I think it was incredibly powerful. It sums up what I believe. And I am concerned that after a year of public comment, I feel like some people are just refusing to hear. In the past year, you have heard and read about actual harm that has befallen students of this school district by the SROs assigned to these schools and by police officers in a deeply, deeply dysfunctional police department. For those of you who continue to defend the SRO program, the only arguments that we've heard is that there are kids who are not harmed, and that there are kids who are fearful they may be harmed without a police presence. Quite frankly, that responsibility falls on the school district to also figure out why do these students feel unsafe without a police officer. I'm not hearing what that looks like, what that means, what their role is. That has not come up. Actual students have actually been harmed. We know that we have information. We should be absolutely horrified that this is occurring in our school district from an organization that has had no oversight and continues to have no oversight. I'll also add that I have not heard that his annual report, which is required by the Memo of Understanding with the SRO program, has ever been completed. Which seems to have to wrap it up, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that there was room for me to continue what you said earlier, that there's some flexibility on time. Am I accurate that that was said?
I've been a little flexible already here.
Okay, then I will lead into that flexibility. So, this did not show any, this organization, this SRO program did not show any demonstrable facts of usefulness, only harm, and cost more than any other school district in the entire state, and has been funded inappropriately with Medicaid funds meant to improve the well-being of all students. I cannot fathom knowing all these details and still choosing to willfully harm students by keeping SROs in our schools. I cannot imagine being a parent and not being morally outraged at this program and being defended in any way. I have heard numerous times.
Thank you very much for your commentary.
Okay, then I would like to follow up on Steve's comment that the number of minutes that people get be revisited at the next district meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Anyone else on the?
We have 3 additional names that have come up. Lauren Dees Erickson.
Lauren.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Again.
Perfect. So my name is Lauren Dees Erickson. I'm a parent of 2 kids at St. Albans City School. And thus far, during the SRO debate, I have been way too comfortable sitting back and listening to people talk about SROs in the school without comment. As you guys grow closer to making decisions about how you want to re-envision the SRO
program and now compelled to speak out. I believe that even one kid feeling unsafe in school is too many. I believe that the money spent on the program could be better spent elsewhere. And as a mother of 2 children, 2 Black children in America, I believe that police have no business in schools. Thank you all for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you, Lauren. Next.
So the next person we have is Parks Pierce.
Parks Pierce, please.
Hey, Park Pierce here. I have 1 child in the Maple Run school system, 2 future students, and I would like to try to request a meeting with the school board and the superintendent, as I know that there's at least 75 plus parents that have reached out to the superintendent in opposition of the mask mandate, and he has refused to get back to any letters, emails, or phone calls, but he is just pawning them off on the principals, and our voices as taxpayers are not being heard. So we are very against this. It is very harmful. We're having a mask on any children. Children aren't even getting COVID. There's no proof that they are. It's not hurting them. It's hurting them with the mask on, but the superintendent is just pawning it off to all the principals, and I'd like to request a meeting so we can visit with this guy who's, I don't know if he's cowarding or what, but he's not answering our questions. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
The public comment session is not to identify any individual person, student, staff member, including the superintendent. It's to talk about issues. Thank you.
This is the issue. He is not making a decision or getting back to any of us who have voices. That's wrong. So that is an issue.
Okay, we've got your comment, sir. Who's the next person, please?
I'm willing.
Elena Castro.
Say it again.
Elena Castro.
Elena Castro, please.
It's Eliana.
Eliana, thank you.
Thanks. So, hi, I'm Dr. Elena Castro. I'm a former high school social studies teacher. I'm also currently a teacher educator and a researcher about education and with focus on race and racism. And so my experiences, both as a person of color, as a Black Latina, as an immigrant, and as a former teacher, would lead me to believe that all of the needs identified by the SRO committee and outlined in the report, such as mentorship and other services that students need on an ad hoc basis, they can all be met by qualified teachers. I'm very confident in our teachers that they are trusted adults and that they make themselves available to students to model different types of emotional regulation, different types of communication about their own personal challenges, and that they also serve as community liaisons to point students and families to resources throughout the local area that they can use to also meet their other needs. So I feel really strongly about removing SROs from schools, and I concur with Dr. Jen Williamson and Dr. Ms. Kelly and with Briar Erickson and Lauren Erickson, and I would like to see them gone. I'm also a parent of a student who will be in the schools, and by the time she's in school, I would love not to have SROs in school. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
That's it for right now.
Anyone else need to?
Can I, point of order, additional, there's some chat happening that it seems threatening to other people who are speaking in the public comment by folks, and maybe we should, I don't know.
I can't see the chat, so I
haven't been able to read the details of it, but some of it suggested people should leave if they don't like it, and I would like to just call out that sorry.
No, so I have clarified that the chat is only to identify the people for public comment, and that people should not be directing commentary at anybody else.
Yeah, and we've done that in the past also. Thank you. It's a little more difficult for me to monitor the chat from where I'm sitting. I can't even tell there's a chat. Somebody else wanted to speak. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Fuller, St. Albans City. I was a member of the SRO Study Committee, and I was the other dissenting opinion. I don't have a prepared statement, but I echo a lot of what John Nichols, another, the co-chair of the committee, stated. So I would urge you to read my dissenting opinion if you haven't already read it, or to reread it. And I guess the only thing I do have to say in response to that is that in thinking about equity, I think the police liaison program, or the police liaison idea, was proposed as the most equitable solution. Because it both serves, as John mentioned, it both serves the students who feel that they've had a benefit, or the staff and the students who feel that they've had a benefit from having the SROs in the school, while not harming the people who feel that they've not had a benefit or who find that it's directly harmful. So I think in terms of equity, that is a very balanced solution. And that was basically the overarching point of my dissent, my letter of dissent. So I just wanted to state that, and that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on your chat? Anyone else in the room? Okay, at this point, I'm going to close the visitor section. And move on to the agenda. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. There's only one item. It's the minutes from August 4th, 2021. If anyone needs to pull these out for any reason, let me know. Otherwise, we'll consider the consent agenda approved, or accepted, I guess is the right word. Okay, moving on to old business. I modified the agenda, so 6A is principals' voices. So I'm going to let you.
Yeah, I thought it'd be great for the board to hear. First of all, thank you for moving this up. I'd like to, the principals are always welcome to stay as long as they want, but I also know that some of them have been up since 5 or 4 this morning. And these are very important discussions that they should be hearing. But they also have to go back tomorrow morning to, as some of them as early as 6, to be there for in-service. So I thank you for moving this up, and they can take care of themselves. But I'd ask someone from each building just to give 2 minutes on what's going on with in-service. I see Angela I see Heather Ann standing up, so that would be great. Thank you, Heather Ann.
Do you need me to sit?
No.
You do whatever you need to do.
Cheers, thanks.
Hi, everybody.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, so we started in service today, which was fantastic. Had a nice breakfast, celebrations, just getting everybody back into getting together and being together as a faculty again, which was awesome. Tomorrow is a full day of meetings. We're going to be doing hazing, harassment, bullying and retaliation training, mandated reporter training, emergency procedures training, just everything under the sun. That's all day tomorrow. Friday we have we have convocation. I'm getting all my C's confused. You'll hear about conscious discipline in a few minutes from Joan. And then next week we're going to be finishing up with a lot of committee meetings and other such things to get ready for the kids coming back. So I do thank you for your guidance and leadership in masking. That does make everybody feel safer, and I appreciate that. We were able, my staff, about 10 of us, to do 2 days of really incredible training with the city school staff. I'm going to let Joan talk about that, but really it was trauma-informed, equity-based, really incredible information about how to regulate ourselves as adults before we try to help students regulate themselves. And I think that's something that we all need to remember from time to time. Thank you so much. I'm going to hand this to Brett Blanchard. Yes. Hi. That's a Bill question. It's going to be fun.
Thank you, Heather Ann. I am Brett Blanchard, Principal BFA, Sarah Thomas, Assistant Principal. 2 minutes. I'll make sure I hold it very exactly too. So we had a great day. It's nice to have people in. We had entire staff in. So we started with the breakfast, just like Dr. Odell. We went into an all-staff meeting where we addressed building updates, took a look at what are our objectives the next 3 to 5 years, how are we going to meet those, and we gave a quick overview with the envisioning plan and how that's going to apply to future in-services for the next 5 years, at least 3, but I see 5, and take a look at how we're going to monitor that. gave health updates. So Nurse Val came in and did what she normally does, a great job, give us an update. We'll address some of that again tomorrow. Then we took a look at some of leadership group, touched base with them. Heather, assistant principal right there, give a little wave, thank you. Also took the orientation team, which is helping lead tomorrow's 9 through 12 parent-student orientation. And so we just got an update on that. Then also spent time with the multi-tiered system of support, and I'll let Sarah take the last 48 seconds.
So we have contracted with Jen Patnode, who has done 5 different videos on the multi-tiered systems of support. So our staff is going through each of those components, the 5 components of the MTSS system. They're doing a training video, and then they're doing some collaborative work around each of those components. So we started with component 1 and 2 today. We're going to do 3 and 4 tomorrow and 5 on the last day. We have some excellent training on youth mental health first aid for our educational support personnel staff, and that's with Miss Alexis Hoyt. So she'll be doing that with them tomorrow. And we're also really looking at our envisioning plan and working that into our in-service by kind of having these different buckets. We have our SEL trainings, we have our academic trainings, we have our engagement trainings. We have some staff that are going to be leading some teachers teaching teachers sessions on how you can get some more engagement in the classroom through inquiry and project-based learning. We also have a community panel with some of our community organizations like Outright Vermont and Spectrum and NCSS coming to speak to our staff about what's available for students for SEL. And then we also have John Muldoon coming in and talking about the direction that the district is taking with our curriculum. So really action-packed in service for teachers as we get this year started. So thank you. I will pass it off to Angela.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see everyone. So at SATEC, you're going to hear a theme. We did start today with breakfast, so I think it's nice to welcome your staff back and be able to, have a chance to talk, see each other, and have a chance to have something to eat. Our days have been very packed as well. We do spend quite a bit of time, especially the first day meetings, really trying to focus on transitioning students that are moving to new grade level teams, making sure information is shared so that they can be supported. We also place new students. We work today, we're trying to finalize about 50 new students being placed into our classrooms for this fall. So that obviously takes a lot of work and coordination and phone calls. We also have time to get schedules set and get things ready for all of, not just the classroom teachers, but all the support staff involved. And then moving into the next few days, we're going to spend some time as well looking at the MRUSD recovery plan, looking at the math and literacy content as well as the SEL component, and having some time to work with the SEL around some of the responsive classroom tasks that we want folks to get started on. We also, just as Heather Ann mentioned, we do a lot of really important things around reviewing emergency procedures. We've reviewed our COVID procedures going into the fall. And also there's time for staff to do there's a lot of Safe Schools online training, and they need time to be able to do that and then ask questions. So, and also really important mandated reporting. So those are the types of things that we've been working on. They're very busy days getting ready to welcome all our students back next week. So thank you. And Joan?
Okay, am I the last one, or am I coming back to someone else? Who's next? Leanne. Okay. Oh, sorry, Angela. There's a step there. Masks, you can't see over them. Okay. So at City, we had the exact same theme, so we start with breakfast. And then we go into what feels like forever of Stacy and I talking, broken out with some half-hour exercise routines in the middle. At our school right about now, because every student will have their own station again this year, we did a lot of moving furniture today. I think that was our theme for COVID. So wherever the rooms, like who went from 16 to 20, now we have to get 3 from there to there, and so that's kind of what we did a lot of today. So the day was jam-packed. And it's hard to talk about what's going to be next because one of the things that we do is as we're getting new information, we're constantly modifying just the way we want teachers to do for kids. Who gets something, who doesn't, what do we have to fix? But I can tell you about the last 2 days that we just spent. If any of you remember, if you were board members, how many years ago did we do the conscious discipline with the pencils? Hilda, do you remember? Was it 4 years ago? We had you guys all dancing with pencils. Do you remember? So anyhow, we did 2 days of that. We wanted to hire this woman who had done the actual course here 3 years ago, but we couldn't get her and we didn't want to substitute. So instead, we pulled together 10 people. Heather Ann was one of them. Stacy and I orchestrated it. Alexis came in and showed how this all fit in with the district model. And then 9 of our teachers who have really been using this stood up and taught their colleagues exactly what's going to be expected for the year. We had 100 people, and it was phenomenal. And we had so much fun. So it was just 2 days jam-packed. Today was jam-packed. Tomorrow's jam-packed. It doesn't get better. But Friday we get to go to convocation and watch kids. So thank you.
Joan, you go.
And I have to say about people online.
No, just leave it. It's Northwest Civics this night.
Leanne Wright and Lisa DeRocher, Assistant Director for the Northwest Medical Center. We did a lot of the nuts and bolts that you heard from the principals that were at the other schools. We were happy to have John Muldoon and Casey Provost come and address our staff and introduce themselves as new district staff, so we appreciated that. We spent some time looking over progress and accomplishments in our school, sort of appreciating all of the work that we did last year when it really didn't feel like we were doing a lot. We really were. And then we looked ahead. We worked on an action plan last year that pulled from the Maple Run Unified School District Envisioning Plan, in addition to the NEASC report that we had completed in March before COVID hit. So drawing from those 2 documents, we created an action plan that gave us 5 goals that we will be working on for the next 3 years. And it's all focused around how we can improve the quality of teaching and learning for students. That's pretty much it for Heart and Service. I wanted to take advantage of being the host site and draw your attention to the white folder on your table. In here, we'll show you everything you need to know about Northwest Career and Technical Center, the application that students fill out. This is a packet that we give to any stakeholder that comes into our school that needs to know a little bit more about us. Hopefully you found your construction pencil. It's important that you sharpen it with a utility knife, otherwise it doesn't work right. And we invite you to look through the materials and let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I grab something? So first of all, thank you, colleagues. Thank you for your leadership at Maple Run. It's been a great day to go around and see everything that's going on. And thank you, Leanne, for hosting. Really appreciate that. For those of you that are on the board 2 years ago when we were doing school board, there were board presentations. And from our work at the retreat, I asked Leanne just to give you a little bit of information, but not to do a whole presentation, because we talked about reports that you wanted. So in September, when we visit a school, I don't remember which school is on the schedule, I'll ask the principal of that school to kind of do something similar, but not a whole school presentation. And we can talk about that as we get to the reports. And I have a piece on my superintendent's report to talk about the retreat and going forward. So how we can turn that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Principal voices. Okay, item 6B is SRO committee recommendation. So just a couple of points. In order for us to discuss a topic, we need a motion on the agenda. There's a motion in this agenda. It is by no means the motion that has to be. It is just an example of something to get us going if we choose to use this to get us going. This motion can be used, other motions can be used. We can do multiple motions in parts. We might want to break down for example, an MOU versus other parts of the discussion. So just a suggestion, and not necessarily the suggestion that I'm married to or anyone is married to, is just to get us going. So, having said that, the next topic on the agenda is the SRO recommendation. It's an action item, so I need a motion for us to start discussion.
So moved.
What are you moving?
How do I say this? Sure. So, the motion to authorize the superintendent to work with the St. Albans City Police Department, modify the MOU, and hire liaison officers as determined by the leadership team. Right?
Yep. If that's what you want, I mean,
Yep.
it's your motion, not my motion, okay? Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second? We have a second from Al. Okay, now we can have discussion. So I'd like to open it up for discussion.
I would just say, Neil, that I'm going to oppose this motion because for as long as I've been here, we've been studying A, SRO, B, no SRO, and now we're saying there's a motion for C, which I don't know enough about to vote in favor of. It's kind of A or B. I'm not familiar with C, so I would oppose this motion.
I would like some clarification on it around the establishment of the liaison officer means the removal of SROs, uniformed police officers in the school district, unless it's through the police liaison program and they're called there as a part of a safety or reporting of a crime, as outlined in the MOU.
All right. So, I'm sorry, my eyes are watering and I'm having a total.
You need a tissue or something?
Sure. Thank you.
Leanne will know what they are faster than mine, otherwise I can't get them.
So part of the discussion was, we needed, like I said, we needed something to step on, okay? And part of the discussion that we had at the last meeting, unless I read the room wrong, there seemed to be a lot of interest in the liaison officer concept. But we also all understood, oh, thank you. We also all understood that we don't understand much about what that concept is completely, and that we only have the Essex district information on their liaison officer to go by. So the other thing I believe is we also understand that whatever we're going to do, we might not be able to do it next week when school starts. We might have to take some time to transition to whatever the new process will be. So we have to talk about whether or not we have to, change the MOU. We have to talk about whether or not we're going to have to look at the MOU as a board when it gets modified. Do we get to see it again to approve it? We want to be educated on the liaison officer concept, and I don't think we are right now completely. I think there's different levels of understanding based on different people's experience and what they've read. And so, I mean, I never expected this motion to fly, just so you know. It's just getting us a discussion and getting us talking. We'll have to, at some point, we'll have to go through the process of voting down the motion to come up with a new motion, but right now it's just a discussion thing.
Are we able to, we talked about putting guardrails or different things. Can we talk about where funding should come from? Because I would like it to not come from Medicaid funds.
Yep, we can talk about that. Go ahead.
No, I just said it. I don't think it's appropriate use of the funding. Part of the reasoning for that is where I work. We're not able to, because we're funded through CMS, we're not able to maintain that funding in relationship with Medicaid unless we respond to non-arrestable offenses with people who are not police officers. So if I'm to take that logic a step further, why should we be using Medicaid funding to fund this position, which is a police officer position, even if they're not in the school, that would be working in a non-chargeable or a non-official role? And how else could that Medicaid funding be used? I'm sure our administrators have lots of ideas.
We can certainly, the final motion can certainly add language to that effect. I am disappointed that the Agency of Education did not come out with a statement related to these Medicaid issues, because they stated they were going to. And when the issue first came up as a topic, and I'm disappointed that they haven't issued a statement, but that's where we're at.
So the motion is that we would have a police liaison in the school, Is that the?
Well, I think the motion is that we authorize
It's
the
convoluted.
superintendent
Right.
to hire a police liaison.
We hire a police liaison, or we have a police liaison program? Because a police liaison program is its own program. It's, you know, so I think that it goes back to needing to operationalize what some of these things are, to making sure that people understand what they're voting on.
Right. So I think we're going to have to do something similar to what we have, with probably less SROs right now for opening school. But we need to put guardrails in place, like a deadline, let's say.
Yes, we need
Let's say
a
it's like December 1st, January, whatever, that we get presented with what is a liaison officer program look like? Then we get an opportunity to react to that.
So can I just, I'm sorry to draw this comparison, but I watched this district turn on a dime when COVID hit. And that was an instant response that needed to happen right away, and I feel like this warrants the same reaction time. It really worries me to say that we could be making a decision in December or January. That's too long. We just said that this causes harm and that this is an impediment for students to access their educations. If that is the case, how can we start school and not have a tight timeline of when we expect to have a different model in place? And also, the contract is up at the end of August. We were told we have to make a decision because the chief needed to know what the plans were. So in terms of them and being professional, we need to make a decision, and we need to have, we need to know which way we're gonna go. I understand it won't happen tomorrow. I understand there's other pressing matters, and I apologize, but this is also a very, very important safety matter.
I just threw that out as a date. We can,
Okay.
you know, we can-
Sorry.
So I would agree, Alicia, like I feel like this needs to happen now. We need to make a decision now. We can't wait for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months to figure out what, and have, to figure out what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, for me, I'm trying to figure out, what do I say about this police liaison position? And how would I vote on this? Well, the first thing for me is, I feel like I need to vote on whether or not we're gonna have SROs in the school. And then decide what we do from there. Because I can't just vote for a police liaison until I know what's gonna happen with the SROs. Obviously, if the board decides to have SROs in the school, then we wouldn't necessarily also have a police liaison. Maybe we would.
Well, go ahead, Jack.
My opinion is that we need both. If we do approve SROs, and this is just my opinion, we also need a liaison program, and I would not want to call it a police liaison program. I would want it independent of the SRO in case there's an issue. Like some of our citizens have explained, there have been issues. I want a program where the issues can be sent to a liaison program and dealt with without it being run by the police. It needs to be separate. Kind of like I said at the meeting where I spoke up, similar to harassment. There's a state law that each school has to have a person to accept harassment complaints. And that's separate from, you know, it's not necessarily the principal or the superintendent, whatever, it's an independent person to deal with that. I would like to see a program similar to that. However, understanding what is a liaison program, we don't know much about it. We're all in kindergarten regarding that. We have to learn.
Well, I think your comment proves that, right? Because I didn't even consider what you just said as a part of the whole process, as it being like an independent, and I'm sure it can be.
I just think there has to be a way, if there are issues, with an SRO, there needs to be some way of holding that person in that situation accountable. So that's my opinion. I would not just blanket vote for an SRO program without it also having some type of accountability, liaison, whatever, so that issues can be dealt with.
But doesn't the possibility exist that you can have a liaison program instead of an SRO program?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the direction this motion was trying to go in.
Okay.
That you may have to have an SRO program for
I would feel better about that.
a period of time, which we need
Yeah.
to determine based on everybody's comfort level, but is it a month, is it 6 weeks or whatever, because we can't turn it around by next week, Tuesday, or whatever first day of school is. But we can do our research, or we can ask our superintendent to do the research along with the school leaders and come up with a recommendation for how a liaison officer program would look like, and what the duties would be, and what kind of oversight, and how we would get reported back the success, what are the metrics that measure the success of that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, but I guess it's because I understand what a police liaison program is more about. That would be my vote as well. And I think I would agree with what Sue said when she said that we really need to go back to the motion that's on there and decide if we're going to go with that or not. And, I also would be voting for the removal of SROs, and I would be voting for the implementation of a police liaison program. And I do believe that that's something that can be done rather quickly. Again, we wouldn't be in charge. That'd be like going back to curriculum or, something else that the schools are responsible for. We wouldn't need to manage that situation. The police departments and the superintendent would be able to work out those details. That wouldn't be something that, we have to do. So I think it's still votable and decidable this evening.
I guess I'd ask the superintendent, because he mentioned at the last meeting the word security threats in the school. And I'm wondering how all this ties in. If we're saying in a month we're going to decide if we want a liaison, what are we going to do in the meantime? Security doesn't hold itself. People who are upset with the school and trying to get in and take their kids, whatnot, they don't stay away because we don't have someone in place to handle them. So I guess I'm directing questions to the superintendent. How does this address the security issues that you brought up at the last meeting?
I think after talking with my team, and I should say my team, the leadership team, sorry, that's a bad term. I apologize to the team and everyone else, it's not mine. It's the MRUSD leadership team, and talking with them about this last Wednesday. We're ready to move in the direction the board wants to go. And we feel we can take care of security. It may take a little while to switch, and I don't want to say a little while like a year, I just want to say, I say that without really a time bound, because we want to make sure we do it properly and we have the safety in place in the schools. That may need additional personnel. We can do that. So I'm kind of answering with a non-answer, Peter, because I don't see it as that much of an issue myself. What I see is the coordination. And I'm going to add a little bit to what you didn't ask me directly is I would like whatever is developed to come back to this board, because I want to make sure I don't miss the target that this board intends, because I don't think I think people have a different definition of liaison. I gave you one example from Essex Westford School District. Burlington hasn't developed theirs. I know there are other districts in Vermont working on what that liaison is. They all have little nuances. So I think it's important for that to come back to this board, not to prolong the time at SRO. I think we can make that, I think, we were, Alicia, where you were, can we do this quickly? We can with deliberateness. And I really put that word deliberateness in there, and it's maybe not even a word, but being deliberate about it, so that we're not missing pieces, that we have an oops. as we would say in some of our training.
Right, and I would also just remind us, Fairfield does not have an SRO full-time. Town school SRO we used to cover sometimes.
Yeah.
City school did not have this. This is something that people have gotten used to and built other things around. And so I would say that shifting back to what that looks like or identifying what those needs are, so how can that liaison meet that, is not unreachable.
Most schools do not have SROs. And we have the luxury of having 3 police departments right in our same city. So if there is a need, they will be attended to.
And I would just echo your remarks, Alicia, that, like I would say, what do we do about safety in Fairfield? It's the farthest away from any of the resources.
That was my sentiment.
What was
Take
that?
it.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it back.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
But, it's the farthest away from, so if we talk about equity, I would say we're leaving 200 kids in the lurch up in Fairfield.
If that's the motivation, right?
If that's the
intention.
motivation. And I guess when I think about transitioning away from an SRO program, I think, well, how does it affect the day-to-day operations? Well, it does at City School because I know they help with the parking, but I don't know about the other day-to-day operations that they are involved in. So, just putting that out there.
When we see the liaison recommendation or whatever, will that include a new MOU with
Yeah.
regular reports,
So
like
you
what we
could-
talked about with the recommendations?
That's why I want to bring it back, because I want you, as any employee-employer relationship, whether it's I'm just going to use this, as a teacher to a principal, or myself to you as the board, we always need feedback on how we're doing with work. If I don't bring it clarity, you should be able to say as a board, Bill, that's not clear enough, or didn't hit the mark, or yes, you did hit the mark here. And that's what I want.
Right.
I'm asking that specifically for this, because I want to make sure that we hit the intention of the board.
With that being said, and I appreciate that, I don't want perfection to get in the way of progress. And so I want to understand that it's going to come back to us for tweaking as we need to. Like, we can make the shift and change that we need to make. Do you see what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I misunderstood what
I don't
you were
want to
saying.
delay it too long because we're trying to get it just right. I think that we've learned from this that it's going to take time and feedback, and we need to hear from the community, we need to hear from students, and we need to really know how it's going.
So in the scenarios that you guys have just described, would we have, still in the interim before we hire a resource, a liaison officer, we would have the two of the SROs currently SROing, or what would we do? We have 2 SROs right now. I mean, I think everybody knows that. They have not hired a third one at this point.
I guess I would say that I don't necessarily need to see that there are SROs in the school currently, as long as safety is taken care of, and knowing that, I mean, even without SROs, I have to assume that police departments are involved when there are criminal activity going on, and that the police should be funneling us this information. You guys are funneling the police the information when there's safety concerns and criminal activity going on. So, and thinking about that, I don't know that there needs to be one liaison person, but there needs to be a program that might be filled by a couple of different people. Not that I'm talking more than one FTE, but.
Yeah, I hold the current SROs in very high regard. I think that the liaison program, the liaison officers, could very well be those same individuals with a slightly different role. I don't think you have to change, you have to change what people are doing and sort of how visible they are in the schools. But I think the functionality can remain, in terms of ensuring safety, being there as a resource, that sort of thing. And I don't think you have to, abandon the SRO program or the SRO individuals in order to adapt to the liaison type of an organization.
So your comment, I totally respect and appreciate it, Grant, and I think my opinion is that has been what is probably the most emotional part of this whole discussion, is that it's people, right? They're people that we know, that we like, that we respect, that we've either worked with or had some connection with, and I totally get that, all right? However, that's not, unfortunately, it's the role that we're discussing, right? It's the role that plays in our schools and how it's created an inequitable situation. And so I think we have to be really careful not to blur the lines of how we emotionally feel about this in terms of the people, right? And because it never feels good to say, well, these two people are going to be out of a job now. That feels terrible to say, you know? But it's not our call as to who they decide the liaison people to be, and what happens to them now is just, you know, we have to decide whether or not they're going to be in the schools currently, not in the schools currently. They could be doing lots of things. They could be doing the research to pull together for a police liaison program. But again, that's just really not our call to make.
Yeah, I agree completely. My point was that depending on how the roles, you know, line up, if the liaison winds up being very similar to what an SRO was, you know.
It basically is, it's just not in-house.
Then it could very well wind up being, you know, similar individuals, similar,
Absolutely.
you know, that sort of thing.
Well, have we decided that it's not in-house at all? I mean, that's the other piece, right? Like,
well, a police liaison program is not in-house.
Right, but I'm saying.
On the daily.
Right, on the daily.
I'm just
Right.
saying, you know, if you look at what
The house to there, is what you're saying, right?
So how does that differ? They're on call, basically? Is that the point? I mean, I don't understand it, and I'm trying to. If
So,
they're
like,
just on call, then how are they
NCSS
different than just sitting in the police department without the word liaison or something?
So can I just make a quick comment? So
Sure.
I was on the Board of Trustees in Fairfield for the library. I was a liaison to the select board, passing information back and forth. I see the liaison as the connection to the police department. And and I don't see it as an equal, like flopping out one for the other, because I feel like so many of the roles that were described to us, what the SROs were doing should be done by other people.
So NCSS.
I don't know if that answers your question.
So also has a liaison program for for mental health services, right? So there is a young woman who we really love at our school, who she's our person, and we call her, and she helps us figure out what are the resources that we need at NCSS. We have a working relationship with her. We've signed confidentiality clause with her. We share, you know, confidential information. So I would take it one step further in the sense that she knows what's going on in our schools. She knows the students, she knows some of the families, and she knows the programs and resources that we could utilize. So it is more intense of a relationship. But when I call her or somebody else from the school calls her, she gets back to us and she's got answers for us. So it's a more paved road, I guess that's all that I can say to you.
Okay, and I appreciate that, but let me just go with regard to security. When the wolves are at the door, when someone is coming down and they're going to take their child and they don't have custody of them, and they're upset, and that happens. I was in school for 42 years. That happens. You call who? Who handles that?
And are we willing to give them that 3 minutes that it's going to take them to get there? Because a lot can happen in 3 minutes. And
I do that we're in Sheldon.
Can I just,
well, right.
Can I bring us back around just a sec? So this conversation, I think, has proven that we really don't know what a liaison officer is. We have 8.5 ideas. And I think that we need to get that straightened out. And I think that, who was that?
Al.
What do you say?
He'd like to say something.
Hey, Al.
Yeah, in all this discussion, thinking back, Angela will remember this, that there was many years ago that perhaps the SRO was at St. Albans Town School. The teachers would be still heroes today.
No one was killed at town school. Al, the woman that was killed was in Essex.
But we're taking other people's schools and saying, well, this happened in South Burlington and that happened here, then we should be able to take what happened somewhere else and use it here as well, right? Because like
it happened at her home.
So, I mean, you bring up a good point, you know, crystal ball, I guess if we could have, you know, figure all that out. But I think going back to the discussion about liaison officer, we're not really clear. I mean, that's why we need you to do some research, Bill. and your team, the team, not your team, my team. No, we need to have the research done, and yet I understand people's concern that we don't want to protract this because research means time and stuff. And I understand Peter's issue with security, and that's an issue too, because we can't start school without a plan. And right now, everybody thinks there's going to be an SRO or two in the schools.
We're starting school year without security in Fairfield.
I understand your Fairfield issue. The other thing, Fairfield is in a different, I mean, you guys are a nice little farm community. I understand that. It's a beautiful school, but you don't have the walk-in.
You're not starting school. This is not different.
There's no SRO in Fairfield.
I appreciate that, but it's not different than it was last year, right?
Right.
Okay. I guess I'm just illustrating that. And I know that brings up the equity issue. I get it. You know, this is kind of like a little tangled web here.
Can we ask for two things? Can we ask for an interim safety plan, and then can we ask for a police liaison proposal?
So my police liaison proposal would be the Essex Westford that I gave you last meeting. And to use that as a template to give me bounds by.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would give you, because that was months worth of work by both the community group and students and teachers and the administrators in Essex Westford.
So, can we just...
And I would use that as a template and say,
right,
mark it up for me.
But I still think that's gonna take the time and the massaging from the administrative team, what's gonna work for the different buildings. But in the meantime, could we see an interim, like the plan for security? What does that look like? What are the needs that you have to have? Could there be a reduction of hours of uniformed police in the schools immediately? And what does that look like?
So right now, we don't, last meeting I asked for some bounds to go by. We know that there are 2 police officers from the city police department that are able to do the SRO work. And 2 individuals, I should say. And that we don't have an FTE piece of it. We know that, because we wanted to know where you wanted to go with this. I know that I asked Casey Provost as our HR coordinator to look at what does it cost for security personnel for the school to hire. That's assuming they're out there to hire, which in the initial looking, and I'll be giving you a hiring report during my superintendents, we're not doing well. That's not to say because I want SROs, I'm just trying to give you some facts of where hiring is right now in the hiring. And so that's the best I can do. Can we do it without SROs right now? We can do what the board pleasure is. We could open school tomorrow with nobody. We could open school tomorrow with 2.
Safely?
I can't tell you that. I can't guarantee you safety. It's like you asking me to guarantee learning for a student. I can't do that, Peter.
I understand that, I guess, but I think that's one of the main things people pay taxes for is for safety. It's the first thing you want in a community is safety,
They
right?
pay their city taxes that pay that, and I think that it's in a way double dipping that way too. And I felt that way during, when we went remote, and I asked what were the SROs doing in that time, and I feel like it gets tricky. Are we subsidizing? Is the school budget now subsidizing the police budget? And so I think it gets tricky there too. But yes, taxpayers are paying for this service, and that's what they want, right?
But I mean, we're paying for, no, what I'm trying to say is there's a need for security, there's a need to be safe. Above all, we want the kids to learn, absolutely. We want them to be safe. We want them to go to school and be safe. We've heard that how many times here, that safety is the #1 issue. And I think we're talking about all the kids being safe when they go to school on day 1, and who's going to be there, like I said, when the wolves are at the door. And they do come. They do come there. Who's going to be there for them?
Well, the same people who were there before the SRO was there, is what I would say.
And we've also put, measures in place in terms of locked doors and buzzers.
And panic buttons that automatically
all
call
of
the
those
police
things.
department.
So all of, if people follow the proper safety protocol at school, then nobody should be coming into the building.
But there's also people who come into the building calm and then end up irate. right? Because I've seen that. And
Absolutely.
that, like, you know, like I said before with my husband, I brought up this point where a parent came in to have a meeting and wasn't getting what he wanted from the administration and attacked the SRO and attacked, you know, like, he was calm when he walked in, and then what? And it went quick. It wasn't
But the SRO was there, and then he assaulted. Other police can come in, because once it's a chargeable offense, then you call the resources.
Right, but are you willing to say, well, it's a chargeable offense while somebody's getting their face kicked in? Like,
So the reality
I've seen it. I mean,
is that SROs were not put in place for safety. That's not the reason why they were initially put in place in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you look at all of the schools in the state of Vermont and then nationally, the overwhelming majority of schools do not have uniformed police officers in them. Okay? So I hear what you're saying, but that's not the reason to keep the SRO officers in the schools. We're looking at this from an equity point of view. And so although people might have big feelings about this, our job is to look at it from an equity, social justice point of view. And in my opinion, and I think other people agree, is that this is unfortunately, because it goes back to people, right? And you feel bad about removing positions, because they're people with families, but it's time to remove them
but we keep
from
saying
this position and to utilize the money in other ways and to, in my opinion, create a police liaison program.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, the point I was trying to make is...
I was just connecting with you.
No, when I was talking about
this.
the people, the point I was trying to make is, I believe these people are very good at their jobs, and they will be fine if they are not an SRO.
Oh, be a police officer. I did not hear that.
If they are a uniformed police officer in the community, if they are a liaison officer, whatever the case may be, I think they're excellent police officers.
So we keep saying equity, but again, we're gonna go back to, you guys are saying equity, equity, equity. Yes, for the people who have come and said, this is how I feel, this is how I feel, this is how I feel.
Equity is for all people.
No, because some people feel like they are safer with a police officer in the building, and they say that will affect my learning.
But we have data that shows that the marginalized population are actually at risk and being harmed.
So can I ask why we spent thousands and thousands of dollars to have this committee? Give us a recommendation.
Thousands and thousands? That's
Well,
not accurate. That's
how much did we spend on it?
No, about 9,000.
So
4.
No, it was more than 4 because we redid it.
It was 9.
So it's $9,000.
We spend way more on that than any in-service, so let's just be...
So I'm saying we spent $9,000. We made this committee go longer. They asked for more time. They gave us a recommendation, and now we're saying,
I don't feel like that's true. I feel like I read this. I've read it 15 times. I've gone through everything. I appreciate their work. I cannot believe the time everybody who was here who spoke about it, and I'm so thankful. But it's a recommendation, and there are parts of it that I want to take, and there are other parts of it that I say, this is not a majority rules issue. This is not the vocal minority. That's not true. That's not what it is. This is about access. And if a kid is being harmed because of a person that we as the board have put into the building, it's our responsibility to remove that so that that student can access their
okay, but what if a child is getting abused at home?
I'm sorry,
the system.
What if a child is getting abused at home? Let's just say, and they go to school and they feel safe because there's an officer there. They are safe there. That gives them the ability to learn. That gives them the ability to say, my dad isn't going to come in and beat the crap out of me because I have someone protecting me. And I'm just saying, I'm just saying, we have to look at it from not just this side, because you guys keep saying, well, yeah, but these guys aren't. Let's look at it the big
I
picture.
can worry. I am such a worrier that I'm going to have ulcers. Like, I worry all the time. I always think about the worst possible thing. But what we worry about and what's actually happened and the harm that has come to our students because of SRO's system in the school, it's not an imagined thing. It's a real life thing. And those kids who are being abused, I know. They need that safe person. They need to feel safe. If a police officer would help them do that, let's find a way to connect with them outside of the school building in a different community setting for them to feel safe.
So I'm going to say this, just another devil's advocate. A kid has a bad experience with somebody from NCSS. Okay? They see it, instant trauma. Are those people from NCSS not going to be allowed in the building anymore because that child has had a traumatic ordeal with an NCSS worker? They see it, I'm just saying, like,
Maybe not with that person.
What's that?
Maybe not with that person.
So,
But they're not gonna.
so maybe not with that SRO though, but you guys are saying all SROs, all uniformed officers.
So what
You're broadly saying that, but we can't say that about anybody else. Or a teacher, or a principal.
Because that is a person that's required for the student's education. If a student's IEP says, I have to have access to mental health services, that NCSS worker is part of the student's education and has to be there.
But I'm saying not for that student, I'm saying any student in the classroom sees an NCSS
So
worker.
I'm gonna say this though, Kate, I think the difference is, I could walk into the building and I'm gonna be able to identify the SRO. I'm not gonna be able to identify who's from NCSS.
Don't they all wear badges?
But they, I mean.
But they're not in a uniform with a weapon.
But they're wearing a badge. It doesn't matter if they're a weapon, that could be the child's weapon. They could see that badge and think of that as a weapon.
Katie, we can come up with 1,000 different what ifs, okay?
I do think about those what ifs, you're right.
And that's fine, and you're allowed to, but the reality, the issue that we're talking about here is a social justice issue. And, well, you can roll your eyes.
No, I'm not, but I'm saying from both sides, Joanna.
I'm kind of letting this.
Can I just say
I've
one
been
other
letting this hold on. I've been letting this happen because I think we need to do this, but we're getting
not
a
productive
little
anymore.
bit wacko
So
here.
I
So
want-
I think we need to get recognized before we speak so we can have some controlled discussion for the rest of this, if that's okay.
That's okay.
So, Susan, please.
I want to talk about safety and I want to talk about my experiences in the hospital. We do not have police officers in the hospital. Twice now, I've been assaulted. Does that mean we should have police officers in the hospital? No. So for the entire shutdown, I spent from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. standing in front of the emergency room. Everyone had to get by me. So did I feel safe? Of course not. There were fights going on in front of me. Did I have to call the police because I was assaulted? Yes, I did. Did anything come of it? No. But the police were right there. And so I think that if we look at every single, I don't know, I think that we need to think about the safety of everyone, which is why we don't have police officers inside the hospital anymore. Because we realized we were using police officers to do the work of hospital employees. And we can't have that. It's against the law.
So do we ask teachers, or who do we ask? And this is a serious question.
You gotta get recognized, we gotta control this.
No, I'm just asking, who would we call if someone's coming in and there's nobody, who would be our first call?
Panic button in the police department.
And I think that's work that the administration in the different buildings have to do. And that's not our job to decide.
Right.
Our job is to say, these are your guardrails. We want the program to look like this. I mean, I can say how I want it to look. And then they come to us and say, this is our plan. And then there's red folders. I remember at City School, I don't know if they're still there. There are red folders in every room, and they tell you in every situation, if this is what it is, this is what you do.
Yeah. And we do have training, the ALICE training that everybody goes through. So school personnel, no matter who you are, receive ALICE training, safety training. So they do know what to do.
So Bill has info here that he wants to include in this discussion.
So I'd like to bring us back to what a district liaison is.
Thank you.
Okay? And I'm just going to read directly from a slide presentation that happened about August 5th or 3rd, I don't remember which, but first week of August at the Essex Westford School District. And can you hear me, Al? Okay. So it says, a district liaison officer. No school assignment, works out of the Essex Police Department, in schools only when requested by schools. Casual uniform with marked police cruiser, not involved with school discipline cases and or behavioral issues. In-district work directed by, and we'll probably change these roles because we don't have them, but the Essex Westford Director of Facilities and District Safety. Does not monitor hallways and common areas. Is a district resource supporting all Essex Westford School District schools. Supports the district's emergency preparedness, provides instruction, support as required, i.e. driver's education, bicycle safety. This is to students is the way I infer that. Okay. Supplied emergency response, served as the officer in charge for the enforcement of state and local statute. Children in Need Services, CHINS if you know of that, by that, cases, or Department of Children and Families, DCF, investigations involving members of the Essex Westford School District School Community. So to give you a definition, that's their big bullets. There's about 4 pages of detail pieces that I handed to you at the last meeting that really specify and go to the idea of what the MOU, it's all within the agreement of what the vision, the job description, the objectives, and how it's reported back. So I just wanted to get us back to that.
And I just want to clarify a point that I made earlier, about the hospital or about even the schools. The police officers would be called, not if there's a scuffle, but if there's criminal activity going on, not just for behavioral issues or anything like that.
And you also have the option to press charges, right?
Correct.
When something happens.
Yeah.
Just to remind the board that in the survey that they did in the SRO committee, 79% of women said yes, SRO should be in the school. 84% of men said yes, SRO should be in the school. And I think we need to remember, in a democracy, the majority rules, and then we make laws and whatnot to protect the minority. That's what a democracy is.
And that's why.
Don't shake your head, because that's what it is.
Well, it is, and that when that democracy is run by people who are white men, then that's the people who they vote to support. So, I would argue that we can't. This is not a majority rules issue because we don't look at our population, Peter. We do not have a lot of BIPOC folks. We do not have people in multitude who can come to us and tell us, oh, this is the majority issue, and we can't wait for that because that's what has created the system of inequity that we have. If we continue to have majority rules, we're going to continue to have inequities like this and completely racist systems that do not support all students.
Everything that they're saying the SROs are supposedly doing, the intimidation.
When you say they, who do you mean?
Oh, we've heard how many? How many have we heard say?
No,
I'm just asking. Yeah, I mean, you're saying
Are you
they.
saying community? No, I'm asking who you mean when you say that.
Anybody who says that we've had a lot of SRO issues down at this school, any of those. I'm just saying that all of those issues that SROs are doing are illegal. They're not right. You wouldn't allow a teacher to do them, you wouldn't allow anybody to do them, and an SRO or anybody should not be allowed to do them. And within the school, there's a way to handle that. You reprimand them, you fire them, you take job action. So everything that we're saying that these uniformed police officers do to the kids is not what they're supposed to be doing.
But I would say there's potential harm because, and I'm sorry, I think Ryer may have shared this before, so I can't speak to this as my own example, but if you as a black parent feel you have to educate your children that they cannot trust the police, and then we have an SRO embedded in the school who is saying you should trust police, does that put that child at risk when they're stopped by the police in 15 years and they say this is unsafe, I'm good? But we know, look at the data that says if you're pulled over and you're driving while you're black.
I get that. I'm also looking at SROs within our school.
I'm going to ask you all to get recognized before you speak.
Thank you.
Please, starting now. Who would like to speak? Well, that's a good way to get going. We need to control this.
Could we call for a vote on the motion? There's a motion out there and we've had it discussed.
You want to call the question?
Please.
I guess we can call the question.
Can we repeat the motion, please?
You got it, yeah, you definitely have to.
We have a motion and a second right now. It says that we have a motion to authorize the superintendent to work with the St. Albans City Police Department, modify the MOU, and hire liaison officer as determined by the leadership team. That's the motion that Katie read. So we have that motion in a second.
You repeat that a little louder, please.
My pleasure. The administration seeks a motion.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to help you. I probably pulled it too much and pulled it out.
Al, do you have your agenda? It's the first sentence under the agenda. It says the administration seeks a motion to authorize the superintendent to work with the St. Albans City Police Department, modify the MOU and hire liaison officers as determined by the leadership team. Right off the agenda. Did you get it, Al?
I do have that.
Okay, that's the motion that we're talking about. We've got a motion and a second. We've been discussing that. Peter called the question, so we're going to do a vote. I have to do this by roll.
Yep, can I just get a clarification, please, Nilda?
Yep.
So are we saying that if we vote yes to this, that we are voting to remove the current SROs and go with the police liaison program?
I believe,
well, I just want to make sure everybody.
I think it's an inference.
But we don't know.
Well, that's
inference.
Then I would, can we to update the motion to put that language
So,
in? I don't.
let me just state this. We do not need to accept this motion. We can read
Okay, so we can vote this down.
So we can vote this one down
Okay.
and write a new motion. I hate to say that out loud, but that is what we can do.
Okay.
So,
Or amended.
or we can amend it. but-
Yeah, amend it.
We can amend it, but it's like a new vote. a new
Okay, this is not
motion.
me.
You can just do some friendly amendments.
Yep.
Or orders that you can.
I don't know if we can do
vote?
friendly amendments.
We all smell like each other.
Before the vote, we can have an
I tried really hard not to.
Okay, so you guys, we can amend this motion before the vote. Once we have the vote, this motion either makes it or fails, and then we would need a new motion, which could be a modification of this motion. I think it's cleaner because of all of this to vote on this motion and come up with a new motion if we need one.
Go for it.
All right, so, oh, yes, Susan.
My final question is, by police liaison, does that mean that they're outside the school versus inside the school? I just want to clarify that.
It appears that that's the case, but if these are questions that you have, that you need clarification, then the motion needs to be modified to include the clarifications that you have, is my suggestion.
So if we add language around removal of SROs.
We're going to vote this down. We're going to create a new motion.
Think about all those things, and yes.
I would just say, I'm not sure if we're talking guardrails, right? I don't know if that's a guardrail that we want to sort of nail down, the in-school versus out-of-school aspect of it.
Right. Let's vote on that, and then I think we'll be able to proceed. Okay, so we're doing a motion. Al?
Yeah.
No. What do you say?
He said
yeah. Are you voting yes? Or no? Al, I'm doing a roll call vote on this motion.
Now, did you modify this motion?
Not yet.
Okay, vote no.
Thank you. Grant?
No.
Katie?
No.
Jack?
No.
Susan?
No.
Alicia?
No.
Peter?
No.
Joanna?
No.
And I will also vote no. Well, that was fun.
Yes.
Okay,
I can
now,
Oodles.
we need to modify, we need a motion that we can consider again.
Please go slow so Aaron can.
Go slow, and let's go. Joanna?
All right. I'd like to make a motion that we remove the current SRO program from MRUSD and make the suggestion to go with a police liaison program as outlined in the Essex Westford School District.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is that you, Susan?
Yes.
I lost some of the sound.
So we have a motion that we remove the current SRO program from the MRUSD and, I don't know if the verb was, consider a police liaison program as outlined in the Essex Westford School District model. That's the motion. Is there, and you seconded it, Susan. So now we need some discussion on this. Yes.
Bill, can you read,
I should get my own computer up.
That's all right.
Well, there's another one on that too.
Could you go through again, just
Yes.
some key points from this?
So these are the key points that go over the
Okay.
4-page MOU.
Sure.
That capture it, okay? No school signage, works out of the Essex Police Department, in schools only when requested by schools.
Okay.
Casual uniform with marked police cruiser. Not involved with school discipline cases and/or behavior issues.
Okay.
In-district work directed by the Essex Westford School District Director of Facilities and District Safety. We don't have one of those, I add parenthetically. Does not monitor hallways or common areas. Is a district resource supporting all Essex Westford School District schools. Supports the district's emergency preparedness. Provides instructional support as requested, i.e. driver's education, bicycle safety. I know there's more of a list, just so you know that. Supply emergency response, i.e. 911 calls. Served as the officer in charge for the enforcement of state and local statute. Children in need of services, so CHINS, in this case. And/or Department of Children and Families investigation involving members of the Essex Westford School District school community. Those are the big areas. There's, almost all of us have like 3 or 4 bullets in the MOU.
Sure. Thank you. So I guess I would start by saying nothing that Bill just read back is objectionable to me. I'm personally comfortable with that job description. The part about the liaison being on site at the request of the school district, I think is a good compromise between being off-site and on-site, because I think it allows for, more on-site time as needed, and, off-site being sort of the default.
Thank you. Next? Yes, Susan?
I would agree with what Grant just said, as long as there were, I'm going to say, guardrails in place for someone being on site. Again, I feel like police officers should be involved in the criminal activity, or potential for criminal activity. Maybe that's the wrong word, but not necessarily very clearly not in school for disciplinary issues.
But isn't that a given? I mean,
It's listed in there.
to me, that's a given. If we have to add that in there, I suppose we can.
In schools, only when requested by schools. I guess I would want to know why we were, again, those guardrails, so that we're not calling them in for every single incident.
Well, I hear you, but I would defer to the school administrator to determine whether whatever the incident that's occurring warrants police, right?
And this will be a draft that will come. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is why there's 4 pages.
So I hear you, and we can certainly add that to some modification of
Well,
the
in the
motion.
memory,
Yeah.
maybe in 4
the
pages,
MOU.
it's going to be listed in there.
The other thing I would suggest is, do we want to indicate something in this motion that requires I'm going to say monthly report? It could be every other month, it could be
Also would be in the MOU.
in the MOU, okay.
And, yeah.
So we're saying that just by the sheer fact that they're going to enter into a police liaison program, there's going to be an MOU? Or do we want to
There would need
say?
to be a contract.
I mean, I'm just saying, you know what I mean?
Yes, if we can amend the motion to say that, I don't know if that's possible, but to say in development of a police liaison program as outlined within a mutually agreed on MOU or whatever the language has to say.
Would you accept that friendly motion?
I sure would.
I need a second.
No, you need
The
to
seconder.
ask
I need the seconder to agree to the.
I agree to the amendment.
You didn't hear what the amendment was?
No, she said
No, I said I agreed to the amendment.
Oh, I agree. Sorry, I'm losing my hearing.
It's all muffled.
Yeah.
I know, I can't see your lips, so therefore I don't think you're talking. So we said in development of a new MOU. Okay, so now our motion reads, motion that we remove the current SRO program from the MRUSD. Consider, I need a better word than consider, but police liaison program as outlined in the Essex Westford School District and develop a mutually agreed upon MOU that is presented to the school board. Did I add that?
Sorry.
Did I add that without anybody's permission? Or, no, we said that, right? No.
Just give her a second, she's getting there, she's trying to be.
Is the main motion indicating modeling after that?
Yes. What did he say?
He's saying it's a motion indicating modeling after, he said that, but I assume he means the Essex Westford. He's trying to help you with a verb.
Oh, okay.
Can you all please not vote so I can take a break? I'm sorry. Please don't vote.
Okay, we won't vote. All right. So a motion, we.
I think the word consider
Is not a good word.
well, it's problematic because
I agree.
it doesn't provide action.
I want another.
But I think that was
Replace.
intentional, and we can't discuss that right now. So but we can discuss it in a moment.
Okay, so you think of a better word.
Well,
Replace.
Well, hold on. I don't want to think of a better word because I think the word consider was intentional. I think that.
I'm not sure she said consider though. I might have imposed that.
Okay, but my point
I
is,
could
it was not authorized, it was not implement, right? It was not an action word. And I want to make sure that that was the intent, because it changes the motion considerably to authorize action towards a liaison versus to start creating a program or start considering a program, which would require further board action.
So perhaps
they want to say like create and implement?
Well, I'm not saying what I want to say. I want to get clarification on what was intended with the original motion.
I would like to say replace with them, because the board, the
Create, implement.
administration is looking for action from the board.
Create and implement work for you?
Replace.
I would like to, first I'd like to authorize the superintendent to do this, but that wasn't the original motion. And I want to get clarification on the original motion, because if there was good reason for why it was stated the way it was, I want to understand it.
So Joanna made the motion, so now that Alicia's back.
I guess my question was that intentional to have the future action of the board required, or should we be authorized?
No, I really, it was not that thought out for me. I believe that Bill, Bill gave us this model to go by, so I trust that this is the model that Bill wants to go with anyway. So if this is the route that we take, so I was, I'm happy to use the word replace, I'm happy to use the word suggest, but it was not because of further action.
Let me try reading the motion as I have now modified it myself. Authorize the superintendent, okay, a motion to authorize the superintendent to remove the current SRO program, create from the MRUSD, and create and implement a police liaison program as outlined by the Essex Westford School District, and develop an MOU that is mutually agreeable to both parties and presented to the school board.
Okay. So I guess I would use the word modeled instead of, outlined, like Al said.
Where do you want the word modeled?
Instead of outlined. Outlined by the Essex.
Outlined, you want modeled instead? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yep, thank you, Al. Gotcha.
All right then. So, Aaron, you've got this, right? No, you're my backup here. Okay.
I got bits and pieces. It's going all
so
over.
authorize the superintendent. Okay, the motion is to authorize the superintendent to remove the current SRO program from the MRUSD and create and implement a police liaison program that is modeled
Hold on.
after the...
Hold on.
Create and implement a.
Oh, you were taking it down while I was reading that?
I'm taking it down. No, go ahead.
Oh my God. Okay. Authorize the superintendent to remove the current SRO program from the MRUSD and create and implement a police liaison program as modeled after the Essex Westford School District, and develop an MOU that is mutually agreed upon by the school board and MRUSD and the police department. And we didn't get our reports in there.
Oh, it is. An MOU will contain reports.
Will contain the requirement for reports?
Yep, it will contain all the guardrails and...
Okay, Aaron, take a shot at reading it to us. See where we have to fix it.
To authorize the superintendent to remove the current SRO program from the MRUSD and create and implement a police liaison as modeled by the Essex Westford School District and develop a MOU that is mutually agreed upon the school board and the police department.
Police liaison program. Okay.
Effective immediately.
I do believe we need effective at some point, because otherwise it's...
So if we do the effect, so motion maker and motion seconder, are you both in agreement of these modifications that we've all helped make on your motion?
I agree.
I am.
Okay, so I guess the effective immediately, do we all agree on that part?
I do.
The motioner and the seconder are the two that need to agree. So that would start with authorize the is it effective immediately?
That's the end.
At the end?
Immediately. Yep.
Okay, at the end, effective immediately. Whoa. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do we need any further discussion?
Effective immediately is bothering me.
Effective immediately is bothering Grant, okay?
Okay, because it means that when the kids start school in the fall, there's no SRO program and there's no police liaison program. So,
We need to vote
and,
the
but,
gap.
so I don't know what the security system is. If I knew what the security system was, and I've heard bits and pieces of it.
Okay.
And it sounds like there's something there. But I don't have enough.
Okay. Bill, do you have any suggested language for effective immediately that isn't?
I think, I'm not sure, I need to talk to my colleagues who are out there in the audience. And I'm having a hard time getting anything from them right now, and I don't want to do it right here.
I hear you.
That I'm going to take a stab that it can be done in like 2 board meetings, 3 max, but that's really fast. And I hear the sentiment of the board and the immediately. I just want to ensure that we have everything in place, and I don't know that sitting right here.
So I do believe it's going to be, and I don't know if I'm talking out of turn, really important to put effective at some point, whether or not that's September 18th or October 1st.
I want it. I want you to tell me what my deadline is. But I'm just telling you immediately, I'm not sure that can be operationalized when you ask me about safety. Because I haven't taken that assessment. I'll tell you my assumption has been to have a rollover period. There hasn't been a length on it, but that there was a rollover period.
So our actual next school board meeting is September 15th because we're not having one on Labor Day week, right?
No, we're having one on the 1st. It's the first Wednesday of the month.
Oh, yeah. You're right, sorry, I went right by that.
And then we have one on the 15th, and then we have the first Wednesday.
So that's like 2 weeks from today, right? The first?
Yeah.
But I feel, this is where I was asking for the 2 different things. I want by September 1st to have a plan to get all SROs out of the schools, and then I want the full model, the police liaison model to be presented, I don't know, by the end of September or something like that.
So do we need to break?
I don't know,
Break
that's what I
this down
asked
into
them.
two motions?
So I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
How about with a transition period not to exceed 60 days or 90 days? Does that give you what you need, Bill?
That's the same thing as just giving me a timeline, so.
Which is what you want.
But I don't-
Which I'm asking for.
I don't know if that's going to please the board, though.
It wouldn't please me. Like, I feel like, 30 days is, I don't even know what today's date is, but, 30 days might be too short because that's middle of September, but by October 1st, I don't know if that's 45 days from now.
When is the contract expiring? August 28th?
So that's a good question. We can't find the original contract. We've been looking for it because there's an original 3-year contract that no one can put their hands on at City Hall or here.
Madam Chair, could we move the point at effective immediately, and if that doesn't pass, modify that particular statement, because that seems a potential sticking point.
But that's an option, except I don't think anybody likes the effective immediately piece, so it's sort of.
Well, then let's change it. In other words, we're talking.
Peter, ask to call the question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Al.
Peter, are you calling the question?
No, I'm going to wait until we deal with, I'll give you the leeway of saying, what do you want to do with this? But let's do something. In other words, again,
Can we do something with not to exceed and come up with a number of days there that we could agree on, like or by October 1st or by September 30th?
Yeah, I like that, by October 1st.
With the particular motion right now, the motion and second say effective immediately.
Right.
So if they don't accept that, we can't change it.
I appreciate that, but I'm trying to get good language first that we might
Right.
have.
So you don't want to talk to me about that, you want to talk to her.
No,
who
but
made the motion
I
and
want to
second.
talk, I want something that might pass also, so therefore I'm trying to take a temperature of the room,
So if you said 3 weeks, would that be, 3 board meetings? Could we say by October 6th? That's 3 board meetings.
But see, the sense that I'm getting here though is we're kind of kicking the can down the road a little bit, and the whole idea was to try to get her done, right? So, yeah, we want to try to get it done.
Well,
I'm hearing as soon as reasonably possible. What is that date? Bill?
I think the October 1st is a fine date. If you said, work on it and then get it in and get it implemented by October 1st, I think that's something.
Are we more concerned about having the police liaison program in place, or are we more concerned about removing the SROs prematurely?
I'm more concerned about removing the SROs prematurely.
And why is that?
My experience at BFA for a year. That's all I can say in open session.
Madam Chair, at this point, I'd like to move the question.
Okay, so I need to just get clarification on the motion. Are you okay with October 1st? Susan, are you okay with October 1st?
I am.
Aaron, can you read the newly modified version 3 of this motion?
Oh, come on. Got it. October 1st.
Just read it. This is too important to screw around. We need to know exactly what we're voting on.
So Joanna made a motion to authorize the superintendent to remove the current SRO program from the MRUSD and create and implement a police liaison program as modeled by the Essex Westford School District and develop a MOU that is mutually agreed upon by the school board and police department by October 1st.
Thank you. Does everyone hear and understand the motion? Okay, we're going to take a roll on the motion. Al?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Peter?
No.
Joanna?
Yes.
And Nilda, yes. Okay, so motion carries 7.5 to 1, I believe, right? 6.5 to 1.
We had 7.5.
Yeah, no need to vote.
Motion carries. regard-
Oh, wait, no, it's 1, they equal 1, yeah.
I'm 7.5.
Yeah, no,
They
you're right,
corrected my
sorry.
math, I'm good at math.
We had that first, yeah.
So it's probably
The first vote was
Okay.
without Joanna.
Yeah,
So-
without Joanna.
We just passed that motion, guys. Give yourself a round of applause. So just for the record, as you all know, this was not easy for any of us, and we went through quite a process to work through it. And hopefully, we will be getting regular reports to assure us that we're doing all the right things here. Right, Bill?
Yep. Gotcha.
All right.
I hear you.
Moving on. Whew. I think I need, yes, sir.
Don't know the rules for this.
Oh, I really can't recognize you right now, I'm sorry.
My name is Gene Jordan, I have a daughter at City School, and I'm really encouraged by the conversation going on. Because this is my first, and I've never been to one before.
Thank you.
This is really encouraging.
Okay, so the public part of the session was early on. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you did. And Gabriella, thank you so much again for speaking. All right, we're moving on to new business. We're going to get, if anybody needs to leave, please don't hesitate to go ahead. School opening and COVID update. A 5-minute break. We need a bio break. All right, folks. I think we're ready to continue our meeting. We're on item 7 on our agenda, which is new business, school opening and COVID update. We have Dr. Kimball.
We don't use that word. Didn't you hear that last meeting?
I just had to do it once.
We don't use the
Who's
word
going to
doctor.
give us our update?
Okay, and Nilda, maybe you should, I don't know how many board members saw their email. We can talk about that afterwards.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to give you all some context, because I think if we set the context, and I'm not sure that my letter to parents did for some, I will say that I received probably about 10 to 12 emails on the topic of masks. Some for and asking for more restrictions than what we put out, and some asking for no masks. That's what I've received in my email. I'm giving you a range because I literally have not counted them. Okay, so I'm estimating. First, to give you this context and where we are now, I think we have to look back to last year. And we really need to celebrate, and I wish I had followed one of my colleagues in Franklin West, John Tapper, who did that. He said, let's look at last year. When we started last year, we were already 8 days into the school year. We lost 8 instructional days. We were in hybrid learning for all. We were in daily health checks. We had a hold on all co-curricular games, and any sport that was either indoors or had limited contact had restrictions in the sports. That changed in a couple of weeks, but that was there. We had physical distancing of 6 feet. We had contact tracing. We had buses with all windows down and sanitizing every run. We had no access to common areas such as gyms, libraries, and cafeterias. We had no before or after school care or activities. We had increased hygiene, and we had masks on for both indoors and outdoors, and physical distancing in both outdoors and indoors. We had no sharing of materials. We had no field trips or public use of the buildings, and we had no personal items in cubbies or lockers. We made a lot of progress in a year. During the year, you all know how we modified and we learned and how to learn to live with COVID. We're going to be living with COVID, in my opinion, for years, and I've heard that from medical experts say that, so I agree with that. Since last year, we've learned a lot of things that were positives that we're bringing into this year that we did last year that we're going to continue because they're helping kids learn better. And some of those are having a really structured, organized arrival and dismissal system. It helps kids to be calmer at the start of the day and leave calmer at the end of the day. Supplying families that are in need of support, supplying families that are food insecure and giving them bulk food. That we have heard from our families that are food insecure that's really helped them. It's forced more flexibility in all of us and changing on a dime. The educational system is usually like the Titanic to get to change. This pandemic has taught all of us we can change fast, which it's been good. You know, we can make the changes we need to. Teachers recognized as essential workers. I can't say that loud enough. I hear that from our local association, I hear that from the state association, that teachers, their credibility has gone up in the past 18 months for the work they do. Not just as teachers, but as caregivers, as support people, as important people in everyone's lives, and to families, not just a place where the kids go to school for 6-7 hours a day. Meetings through technology, increased focus on relationship and team building and belonging, social emotional learning. One-to-one technology. We didn't have one-to-one technology in BFA, and we put it in place in 3 months. We pulled a lot of money from different places, but we did that. We had it in all the other schools. And every teacher switched to an online platform to be able to teach from, and that's going to benefit our kids in the future because it gives them more universal access to learning. We can give them, having that greater access will allow more flexibility for how students learn. And finding the essence of what students really need to learn. It made us focus and narrow the curriculum, which we need to do a lot more in the US. Our studies of curriculum in the United States compared to international countries have shown that we have way too much for our kids to learn in the time they have in school. So, with all that, since May, we've been receiving some key pieces of guidance. Two from the AOE and the Department of Health, one from the CDC, one from the Vermont chapter of American Associates, and I may have this wrong, of Pediatrics. Another piece that was key is some data that I'm going to tell you that happened within the school. And then I brought with me, sorry, I need to get my newspaper out of there. In Friday's Messenger, and I deliberately brought the newspaper because I thought it was great to read to you, was this about the data for COVID in Franklin County. This is dated August 13th. It's on page 3 in the Messenger. Franklin County has experienced a dramatic increase in cases of COVID-19 in the last 14 days, with 97 as of Wednesday. That's Wednesday the 11th. That's second in the state behind Chittenden County with 399 and just above Washington County in 94, according to the data from the state COVID-19 dashboard. And then it goes on. I also need to inform the board that a week ago, this past Monday, we had a positive case within a camp at one of our schools, and we had to shut down the camp, and we had to do all the contact tracing. Luckily, our local Department of Health personnel were very helpful in getting us going back into that, but there currently are no protocols for contact tracing in school. We're still waiting to receive those, so we don't have those yet. It took to Friday to get called back from the state's contractor for contact tracing. So for those of you that work in healthcare, I think you see some of this sometimes. It took 4 days to respond. By then, we had already notified all the families that they needed to go into quarantine.
Can I ask one quick question?
So that is something that we have, and it will get reflected on our dashboard.
So you mentioned a couple of different studies.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can get the link to those studies? Because I know I'm going to.
Those aren't studies. These are the pieces of recommendations that we've been reviewing.
Okay.
I can get you those. It's the AOE, and I referenced the recommendations from the Agency of Education and Department of Health, which they had 3 big things: stay home when sick, masking first 10 days of schools, and when schools reach 80% vaccination rate with those who are eligible, you can take off masks for those who have been vaccinated. And school surveillance testing, which we've signed up for. It's an opt-in. And contact tracing, which I just told you about having at camp. That was one of the documents. The second document, on August 3rd, the American chapter of the Association of American Pediatrics sent a letter responding to Governor Scott's news conference the Tuesday before about how they didn't think he was strict enough in what he was recommending, that there should be masks universally. And those are the 3 things that they suggested in their piece was glasses.
They're on your, I've got like 3
Okay,
more.
so there we go. I can't even see. It's late, guys. It's past 8. It's past 8, okay?
I was double up.
Okay, so we believe the strongest language possible around requiring universal masking will help remove any ambiguity. With regards to the 80% benchmark, this is their second point. We believe the entire student population within the school building should be factored into the calculation and not just those who are eligible. And their third point was, to the extent possible, the metrics used to a certain vaccination status and population fully vaccinated should be statewide and universal. Okay, there are 3 points. And then the COVID guidance from the CDC, you can find these very easily. They're on the web. And I should say the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Vermont chapter cited this in their opening paragraph, but students benefit from in-person learning and safely return to in-person instruction in the fall of 2021. That's what we're all about. They also talked about vaccination as the #1 prevention strategy, and then due to the circulation of the highly contagious Delta variant, they universal indoor masking by all students. The last piece I would tell you is part from Vermont statute, Title 16. Let me make sure I read it here. Title 16, subsection 834A states, each school district and its employees owe its students a duty of ordinary care to prevent the students from being exposed to unreasonable risk from which it is foreseeable that injury is likely to occur. Furthermore, there's case study from Edison versus Barry Supervisory Union 2007. If a district actions do not meet the standard of care causing foreseeable injury, then the district may be subject to legal action. Our insurance carrier is going to be coming out, we know, within the next week, on a statement of where they will carry us and where they not by what actions we take. So we're waiting to hear that information. That is yet to come as well. I want to commend our leadership team that they took a bulk of Friday morning, and we went through a point-by-point of recommendations. I can tell you that across the Champlain Valley, all the superintendents, it was maybe a 30-second discussion amongst us, like we're all following the recommendations from the Department of Health and CDC. And for those, some are working with their boards to authorize and some are not. It's a mixture. And I know that's changed, and we can talk about that email that just came out.
Has the association weighed in? Is there support? Are we aligned?
Which the associations of the school boards, the superintendent's association.
I meant the unions, I'm sorry.
Oh, the association. Katie and Mike had to go back. They need to get home as well.
I know.
But I know that they would have said that.
Okay.
Here, they were here to say that if you had that question.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's one of their main reasons for being here tonight, was let you know they're full support where we're at.
Okay.
So I know that there was talk earlier of of what should the board do versus the superintendent. I did take action on Friday because I felt it was important that our community know where we're going, and I take that responsibility. And that's what I have for you. I cut it down from the 6 pages of reflection, okay?
Right. So just to piggyback on what Bill said, I can actually read what I'm looking at. Gotta flip it.
Very close.
Okay, so this came this afternoon. I think most of you probably got it. But it said the Vermont Agency of Education issued a memorandum regarding school district authority to require masks. The memo provides background information on school district authority to require students to wear masks as a condition of attendance at school. School boards may adopt a written policy requiring students to wear a mask at school or delegate planning for COVID-19 mitigation measures, including masking, to the superintendent. In either case, the school board shall take action to clearly communicate whether it is delegated this authority to the superintendent or adopted a policy. Please contact us with any questions. So the whole last year, we had delegated that authority to the superintendent. And it's a pleasure of the board to continue that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think by general.
I have one small concern.
Okay.
And I'm not opposed to delegating to Bill, but I worry, Bill, as a new superintendent for this, I mean, obviously has been at BFA and is the assistant superintendent for some time now, so the community knows him. I worry that with it being sort of a hot button topic, we set up some conflict between the community and the superintendent, and I wonder if that conflict might be better shifted to the board. This is my only concern about delegating to the superintendent on this.
I hear your concern, I do, and on the other hand, that's his job. No offense.
I certainly don't.
I mean, no, but he's the expert on, that's his job, and he's supposed to make those decisions, and we support him. That's the way I see it. So I'm sorry, I don't feel bad for you. That's your job.
So last year, when this was all unfolding, I had a lot of conversation with, what was our former superintendent?
That old guy?
With Kevin, and he talked to me, I think, because of my job at the hospital too. It was just sort of a collegial kind of thing. And I can tell you that he got all his guidance from the health department. I mean, it wasn't like he was, figuring this out. I'm assuming that you are also in communication with the health department and are taking your lead from them.
Oh, yeah.
I think the fact that you're in with all the other superintendents is a positive thing too. It's not like you're going out on your own, like that was a collective, right?
No, but I do hear what Jay.
Oh, absolutely. No, I get it, but
that it's very kind.
it is. But
That's right.
I agree with both. I think it's Bill's job, but I think it would be nice for the board to support Bill's decisions on this. That way it puts the board as supporters, but Bill as the leadership decision.
And maybe we can have a motion that has
I agree with
language
that,
that says
That's a
we're in support and we're behind that decision.
because I've been getting a lot too, and they're like, well, why aren't you guys? And I'm like,
Right.
I think that would,
Well, one
Why
thing,
aren't you guys what?
So Bill tells me that we can take action on this even though it's not on the agenda. We could-
It's not your practice, but you run under, and I'll ask Al, because Al, you're our expert, but
Modified Robert's
it's
rules.
modified Robert's rules. You can do it, it's not your practice, and I think you should state that. That's my recommendation, because you don't want to get into, and one of the reasons, I've said it to you before as a board, you run really well, and you stay with your practices. So if you were going to do this tonight, I think you'd want to state that you're outside of your practices of how you generally operate.
Is there any harm in putting it on the next agenda? Let's do that.
are there potential delays?
No, I'm gonna keep running until you stop me on this one. I can take
Then-
the heat on it.
Aaron, let's put that on the
Good
next
idea.
agenda
Yeah.
to do it.
We can also-
Agenda.
What's that? Joanna?
I'm waiting.
Oh,
Jack was talking.
Jack?
Oh, no, I'm finished.
Joanna?
I was just saying that at board announcements, you could, people could choose to make a statement in support of,
Yeah.
what we're currently doing and wait and vote on it properly at the next meeting,
Sure. Sounds a good
if they
idea.
so choose.
I would just caution that we're careful around making comments during our announcements about public comment though, so just
So,
remember like folks.
thank you. Anything else related to school opening and COVID update?
Oh, I'll do it in the superintendent's report.
Okay. All right. Other business, we have warrants. So I need a motion to approve the warrants, acknowledging that passage of this motion will act as individual board members participating remotely and authorization of their signatures if they're not here to sign. Thanks, Al. Is there a second?
Second.
Joanna seconded. Any discussion? Warrants are going around for signature. Make sure you look really closely because sometimes there's only like 2 pages and it's very easy to miss.
There's quite a few signatures there.
Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any oh, darn, I have
No,
to take a
there's a
roll. Sorry. Al, yay or nay?
What's that?
The motion on the warrants, yay or nay? Yes or no?
Yay.
Yay.
Yes.
Thanks, Grant.
Yay.
Kate, Katie, Jack,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Joanna.
Yes.
Nelda, yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And We are now up to superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. I'm going to quickly give you 5 items. 1, enrollment update. I want to give you an enrollment update. We don't have a full enrollment yet, but I can tell you, I want you to expect as a board, and we're working out issues. As you heard Angela say earlier, we have 50 new students at town that we did not expect. We have 90 new students at BFA, and ECP has a wait list, and it has for like a month and a half or 2 months. It's really been full. So we are gaining kids. It is causing issues. At the next meeting, we will give you more of a report on what those are, and I'm specifically working with BFA right now. I may be working with Jason and SATEP, and I'm going to give you in a minute some hiring pieces, but we may have to be looking at some other positions, but we're authorized to do it within the budget which you've given us.
I believe at a previous meeting, we might have authorized some actions that would have allowed you to increase enrollment through taking students from other schools and that sort of, or from other.
Yes, you did, but
Does this contribute to that? Have we put you in a bad?
No,
Okay.
no, you're fine with that.
Okay.
You're thinking school choice, and we're fine. Okay. Second thing, I did in June, I know I shocked the board a little bit with some of our hiring update, but I wanted to give you a hiring update right now. Altogether, we have, I'm quickly calculating, we have about 22 FTEs that have not been hired. We're opening school, so we're gonna go. Remember, it's out of about 600 FTEs. So it's quite a, there is a fraction. Almost every superintendent colleague I talked to over the past 3 weeks to a month, they've been like, where are we gonna get the staff? So we're not in it alone. Everyone is there, okay?
Yep.
I did want to kind of break this down for you. One of the places that we are missing 4.4 FTE licensed positions. And I'm going to tell you what they are. And one of my theories as management is it's better, you have to have the right person. It's harder when you hire someone who's not qualified for the position. It makes it harder on everyone else. It's easier to go without. So we are missing, at City School, we're missing a school counselor, a math interventionist, and we replaced an SLP with an SLPA, so a speech language pathologist assistant. At town school, we have decided not to go with, and we can't find an SLP, so we're going with tele support for SLP. I got that right. We didn't do SLPA, right, Jason? You're giving me a thumbs up. Good. Also at town school, we're missing a 0.4 FTE PE teacher that's in combination with being an athletic director for town. So we're looking for that. And at BFA, we're missing an English interventionist. So those are the professional positions that we're missing. We have about 14 para positions, 2 to 3 custodians, and a few building subs that we're going to come through ESSER to help support our ESSER work.
So the SLP is City School, there's already an SLP there.
We went with an SLPA there to replace the SLP.
But is there
must be an SLP that supervises.
What?
Yes.
Yeah, you have to supervise.
Okay.
Yeah, licensed.
An SLPA is what?
An assistant, not a full.
Trained by who?
So they don't have the C?
They come with the training, which they have to have trained to be hired as assistant.
Okay.
They have to have at least a communications degree.
Is that an additional position? Do they have any full SL?
Oh, they have other SLPs on the team.
That's all I'm asking.
They have several
Okay,
SLPs.
thank you.
So that's a hiring update. I made the decision Friday after working with the team, the leadership team, that convocation having 600 people at Collins Pearly was not a good idea. Even though it's a tennis court, so we can spread out. So we're going to be virtual, and you will all receive a link. It will start at 10 o'clock on Friday. The students will still be performing. We'll have our student performance, which is excellent. And they're going to do it on the stage at Collins Pearly, and we want them to have an audience, so the city faculty are going to go up and be their audience. The part, I'm just going to give you my own little personal ad in here, which I was really looking to my first convocation. You never get your first time to get to do that. Brett went through that last year as a principal. He didn't have his first time to be with everybody on that opening, and it does mean something to those of us that are educators. And I think it means a lot to a lot of folks when they're a leader to have that first time you get to sit with everybody. And the other thing we were going to try to do that is we were going to do a new maple leaf with actually a fall colors. We have all these great shirts that everyone's getting. And I want to thank Joan for that idea of the multicolors and having, kind of showing diversity by that everyone would have all these different colors on, but that it's all unified in a maple leaf shape. We'll try to pull that off at some point, but not right now. And the last thing I have to talk to you about are dates for the retreat part 2. That's the way I can title it. So I'm gonna say some dates, knowing what hour it is. I don't think we need to get, I see people reaching for their calendars. I'm gonna ask Aaron to do a doodle poll with you. I'm gonna ask that you respond by Friday. So we can, because and I'm gonna ask for 2 so that we can I can go to Mike and say, Mike, which of these 2 dates work? I'll tell you the dates right now, but then we'll get them out to you tomorrow, okay? So it's gonna be, and they're all in September, 20th, 22nd, 23rd, 28th, 29th, 30th. That's what works in my calendar. So we'll get those out to you. And if you guys can respond to those through a doodle poll, I'll have Aaron.
And same time frame? Like
Same time frame. I don't know if we'll be able to get access to Hardap. Again, that was, in my opinion, that was a great place. Aaron does all his magic. As you've all said, he's invaluable. Just don't tell him that around salary time. That's all we gotta do. So that's my quick and dirty superintendent's report.
Thanks, Bill. Anyone have any questions for Bill? Okay, we did go.
Yeah, I know, I did. I mean, just in terms of those positions, are the administrators feeling like I mean, when you talk about SLPs down and a school counselor down, I mean,
Well, the nice thing at City is we hired homeschool coordinators that we were bringing in we were making that change anyway. And so we have those folks there, and the team of counselors and homeschools said, if we're not gonna get, and they've been in on the hiring process, so if we're not gonna get someone good, let's go with what we have.
Yeah.
We know it's more work for us, but it's less work than to get someone that isn't working.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting
Yeah, so.
that at all. I was wondering if there was a possibility, not that NCSS probably doesn't have positions filled either. But
NCS is down 50%.
I know, I don't know what I'm saying.
Everybody, I mean.
It just is what it is.
We have those troubles at the hospital too.
It's everywhere. But in terms of like, when you talk about SLP, those are, mandated legal documents that kids are supposed to receive services.
We're missing paras, and we're going to be those students missing services that are required in their IEP. We are going to do the best we can.
Yeah.
But we're also going to make sure we put the right people in the place to do the
Absolutely.
work. One of my colleagues out there has done the work, and we're paying for him as an assistant principal. We're not going to do that to him again. And I told him that several times. He's not listening to me. Sorry, Jason, I just had to call you out on you're not going to be a para-educator again.
Okay, so moving on, we're up to board announcements. I have 2 things. I just want to, first of all, thank the board and the superintendent for the participation in the retreat that we had. I think it was highly beneficial for us, and I think that it really helped us tonight, actually, as we work through the vote for the SRO action stuff that we had. I think, we were able to not agree, but yet be respectful of each other, and that's really important. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm just bringing this up, this has nothing to do with how I feel or whatever, but should we continue with face-to-face meetings or go back to Zoom? What's the will of the board? Just throwing that out there. I'm thinking that, personally, I'm thinking things are gonna get worse before they get better. That is the prediction on the news. I think we're in that, the pandemic of the unvaccinated right now, and there's that surge that's happening. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think that I would still like to have in-person meetings. I think there's value in seeing each other face-to-face, and community members being able to see us face-to-face versus over Zoom. And I figure if the kids are in school full-time.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Good point. Yep.
Would you like me to move it to large spaces, i.e. like, we couldn't get the pack tonight. Otherwise, I was thinking about the pack.
Yeah.
But I can put it in really big spaces that are indoors.
That's even better.
This is great.
Well, if it wasn't so hot and humid, this would be really nice.
I like this.
Well, so the first meeting of the month, we usually have it at the,
I will tell you, I'm concerned putting just all the administrators and all of us in the boardroom.
okay.
It's
So-
too small.
So that's why I'm asking you about space. If you'd like me to move it to a big space, I'll have to work with my colleagues to say I need to start using your schools, but we can
And
find spaces like that.
The pack you're talking about on the stage, is that any bigger or should it be done in,
Well,
could it be done
the
in
stage
gym?
would be, we'd have the audience would
Okay.
be in the seats and
We'd
ask
be
them to
performing?
space out.
Okay.
And we'd be on the stage. If the other locations, and I know I can say this because Angela and Jonah both offered it, they said we have our library or our gym. The gym I was in both gyms today. They felt very big and not too echoey. The gym here gets really stifling hot compared to those gyms. Fairfield, the gym there is bigger than this. It's not as big as those two gyms. So I would just have you I would take that responsibility and find this a large
Okay.
space.
And just so you know, everyone has the option to Zoom in if they need to. for any
Right,
good
so,
reason.
but can we just ask as board members that we follow what we're asking our staff to do? So if you're sick, don't come in person. If you've been exposed or been told to quarantine, please don't come in person and please Zoom in. Is that okay?
Perfect, yes, for
And-
sure.
And the other thing, we were giving Aaron pats on the back, we should be giving John, he's been making sure like the day before, wherever we're at, that all the because the IT staff at this time of year they're hopping. So they couldn't take something new, so John's just been making sure all this Zoom works at the location the day before and making sure we're all set up. So thank you, John.
And then, if we were to crisis somehow with the COVID thing, I mean, keep an eye on your email or your cell phone text, because that's how we would communicate that we're definitely having a Zoom meeting, okay? If something were to happen, because we have to maintain safety at all our costs. Any other board announcements, folks?
I just got one thing I'd like to say. I was going to say it at the retreat, and I just didn't get the time, and that is, we're all professionals, we're all doing a duty, but we all need to be punctual. The fact that normally 2 or 3 have to wait every meeting 2 or 3 minutes, I think that that's not professional, and I think we ought to all be here on time.
Sorry.
That's it. No, I'm not pointing a finger at anybody. I'm just saying we should be here on time. And Nilda, you have to always say, well, we're going to hold it up for 2 minutes. We shouldn't have to do that. We ought to be here on time. That's the way, when we teach school, that's what we teach them, be there on time. When you got a job, that you're there on time. And I think we ought to all be there.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I had received a message though that.
I had in service until 5:45, so I'm sorry.
Sometimes I just like to defer to the fact that I want everybody to hear everything. If anybody's gonna make it happen, I guess
Sorry, Kate.
Got it.
Bring it on with mosquitoes.
Anyone else, any other board announcements?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, I commend Bill for putting together the masking guidance that the schools the parents all received. And thank you for the work that you've done with the other superintendents and your leadership team. I don't suspect that was easy to put together, but I think you struck a nice balance.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, I hope I wasn't out of line, but people shouldn't come to the open session and start attacking the superintendent or a teacher, or, they're about issues, and he could have said, I'm against the masking thing. He could have brought the issue without attacking Bill, or something. And that's the point I was trying to make, and I hope I wasn't out of line there.
I don't think you were okay.
I agree with you, but I wish you were here like 4 meetings ago.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
the other thing to remember though is that not everybody works in a school or in a
Right.
managerial position. So
Right.
people have feelings about things, and, he feels as though that, I'm not agreeing with how he spoke to someone. I'm just saying that not everybody knows how to do that.
And I don't
you
think
know?
he doesn't necessarily know the rules. I think he just was speaking from
So
passion.
I don't know.
Well, I think
if
we
he
should
started-
shut people off, though, and say, you can talk about the issue, but not people.
So
No,
that was-
we should have a,
What do you think,
because
John?
we teach the community to come in and attack people, that goes downhill quick.
I cut a few people off tonight.
So when you begin the public do you go over, I can't even think.
2 minutes,
Do you go over not just the time frame, but in terms of how to address and making?
No, I haven't.
So maybe we could do that and just teach people
Oh, yeah, that's a good
how
idea.
to do it, you know what I'm saying?
And we can
Can't
also,
talk about a student or a teacher
and
or a
maybe we
staff
can
member.
address the issue in the chat.
Right.
Because
Yes.
that was not.
Absolutely, and that was already addressed in the past, right?
I think we need to give reminders. And I think the 2-minute thing too, if 2 minutes, I mean, we had one gentleman who was like, well, I'm taking advantage and just kept going on. I think that's when we need to say, like, you know, he was very, I thought, very
I
rude.
think Bill has something he's going to share with me when he finds it.
I gotta find it.
It's
We used to have something
sort
put
of
on
a
the back
prelude,
of
a
the
prelude to
agenda
it.
that says the board welcomes all public comment and contributions.
Yeah, yeah.
But we ask that you do it within our norms, and here are our norms.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yep, good idea.
That's it.
Write it down.
You're right, if I don't write it down. And she's learned, she's watched me do this now.
Okay, so any other board announcements? Okay, next item is agenda for future meetings. I just want to get that, designate the superintendent to be the person that does the mass thing on the agenda. And then we have plan for the retreat follow-up. They're going to do the doodle.
Yeah.
We have implicit bias training, anti-racism training, recovery update, 5-year plan, IT study, anything else?
So I want to get the envisioning plan coming back to you because we need to start doing community engagement. I think it will actually help with some of the issues that were spoken here tonight.
Right.
And how we set that up.
Okay.
And John's, we're like the batons between us right now. I'm trying to get it all the way to John. And I've been the one who won't let go. He's willing to accept. But we need to come back and hear of all the good work that's been done and where we're going. You heard some of that from the principals tonight, but we're able to see that. And I don't know if we're going to be ready on the 1st to give you that presentation or the 15th, but one of the two we need to come back.
Okay.
One question. I believe I heard the different principals talk about Rebecca Howsam coming and doing some, so, I mean, could we just get links given to us so we could just?
There's that, but actually, I want to talk with Milda about another project that I think will help you more as a board with the community and with yourselves and your work.
Okay.
That other boards in Vermont have done.
Any other agenda for future meetings? We don't need executive session. Any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Good job.